Hi everyone, welcome to the next episode of the Emergence Show where we discuss the latest and greatest in emerging tech and immersive experiences. I'm Nico Farah, a creative technologist who has been building immersive experiences using emerging tech, and I have my co-host with me, Noreen Sullivan, who is a sociologist and cultural anthropologist that also has co-founded a business with me. And I'm excited that today we're going to talk about another important and critical element of creating these immersive experiences and, in general, building brand activations. A very important element of that is around creating these delightful experiences and thinking about the emotional connection that we're building with our audience. And in this crowded world that the audience and the customers have a lot of options, how are we going to really stand out? How are we going to make a experience or product more memorable? This emotional connection that we create, this memorable moments that we create, makes us differentiate our brand in the mind and heart of our customers. And then they become our advocates. They go and talk about that experience and the whole brand to their friends, to their family on social media. And so that becomes kind of like an organic marketing for you to amplify your brand messaging. And so we're going to talk about, what is really the elements of, delightful experience. What are the ways to to use design thinking to create these emotional experiences. We're talking about several examples of brands and their activations that have done it right. And hopefully, from all of this, you take away a lot of practical, points that you can implement into your day-to-day operations and activations. Noreen, do you want to add anything to set the stage?
Sure. So we've been on this little journey the last few weeks talking about, building customer experiences. And we talked about what immersive experiences are and why they're important, and then all the consumer touch points on, how to have brand interactions and how important touch points are. And then last week, I was ill and you took on the show yourself and you went over storytelling, right? So we're building up a series of tool sets like your toolbox and to increase your engagement with your audience and therefore your customer, and convert audience members to customers and develop a relationship with your brand. And so the idea of, okay, now we have this, we understand what the touch points are. We understand that we have to tell a story. So then how do we actually make the content and dive in and trigger people's emotions? So we want to talk about that framework and strategies to engage the audience. And a lot of times people think about design thinking is just for products, but it's not. So, design thinking is a human-centered approach to problem solving and designing, and you can apply it to design your content. So instead of making assumptions about what customers want, design thinking makes you truly engage in the experience and their feelings to uncover, unmet needs and engage deeper. And so, there are certain elements to design thinking process, and we're going to talk about those first and then get into specifically what we mean by delight and in this engagement. So
Noreen, if you can pause right here, a quick history of the design thinking. Do you want to tell us where the design thinking concept came from?
Sure. The design thinking concept came from Apple mostly. So it was trying to think about how to make something amazing for the customers. Let's start with the customer. And so, yeah, so when they were designing the iPhone and some of that design work, um, uh, well, I have to check this guy's name, thinking.
But yeah, there is also a great course on Stanford. They provide a lot of information, so our audience can check out on YouTube. And Stanford has an in-person course, I believe, too, on
Right.
design thinking. Very valuable. But and similar concept to that you can find in startup lean methodology, with the idea of like talking to customers. It all goes back to really being in touch with the customer. Now, more specifically, this design thinking is emphasizing the steps on empathizing first, and then coming up, defining the problem from talking to the customers, and then going to the process of ideation, and then for the solution, and then prototyping and validating. So, again, similar to a lot of other frameworks, but it has a kind of a different perspective or point of view. Um, Started with products, and now it's applicable to experience creations as well.
Yes. So yeah, so we want to understand that the first step is to have empathy for the perspective of the user. And a lot of times when you're building a product, you have your idea and you're not thinking about how people will use the product. Well, the same thing goes when you're making content for an audience. We're building not just for our audience, we're not just broadcasting. We want people to comment, we want people to share, we want people to engage in experiences. So to in order to get people to do those things and take those actions, you have to that content, that experience has to meet some kind of need, or even if it's just the need for entertainment. And so we just want to start with that empathy.
Yeah, and a lot of times we just make assumptions, because we have a hammer and we're looking for a nail, and that's wrong. So it's better to be in touch with the target audience that we're targeting, and think about what really would delight them, what would really change their experience for them. And when the ways we can do that is through talking to them, doing interviews, doing surveys, and even observation. One of the examples I learned from that Stanford course was, one of their I forgot his name too. It's like one of the great designers went into the gym, and they were creating like tools to improve these gym equipments and treadmills. And he just spent a whole day observing people, and realizing their feelings about like towards these machines. And he realized that a lot of it is around fear. And so after observing that feeling, he went to the drawing board, and came up with a prototype idea to combat this feeling of fear. And then he went through the testing and so on. So we will get to the other steps, but observation is a very important tool of the empathy phase.
Yes. Yeah, watching, seeing, listening, and building up things that make people feel good about your brand is a way to have real impact. And when there's positive impact, then people create this emotional connection.
Or even, what are the frictions? It's not always like a positive thing in the beginning, but we want to discover the frictions to be able to resolve them. I was listening to Jeff Bezos' recent interview with Lex Fridman, and he was talking about what he calls paper cuts, like the small frictions, the small complaints that is bothering the customers. And he said that originally in the beginning, they were not taking them as seriously, but now that they have the resources, they have dedicated teams specifically focused on these small problems. But those small problems can lead to the friction and unhappiness. And that's where kind of they came up with really good products and features just from solving those small problems. Cool. So, Noreen, do you want to talk about the Airbnb example of how they empathized with their end users and their home hosts?
Yeah. So in this case, they were trying to make a positive impact on the world, not just on their customers, like not just like a paper cut for Jeff Bezos. They created an open homes program, which was a way to connect its community, and it allows hosts to offer their space for free in times of need, such as a natural disaster, or evacuees or refugees or people who are seeking medical treatment away from home. So it was looking at how real world challenges in people facing displacement or critical situations that need temporary housing. And by addressing the need, they go beyond its core business by providing vacation rentals and demonstrate a commitment to making a positive impact on lives, which allows for more community engagement. And gives a sense of responsibility. And then it gives them this bunch of content, right? So they share the powerful stories of the hosts and guests involved in the program, and they highlight the human side of, people helping people. And the storytelling approach creates an emotional connection with the audience. And then that creates positive outcomes. And then when it comes time for people to choose where they are going to take a vacation or what they're going to use, they will choose Airbnb. So it communicates openly about the objectives and the success and the challenges, and builds trust with the community over time. And they make it easy for people to participate through a user-friendly interface and clear guidelines to make it accessible to both the hosts and the people who need help. And it's not a one-time campaign, but it's a sustained initiative within the company. So there's a long-term commitment that signals to the public that empathy is engaged in the brand values. So, and it's part of the ongoing mission. So that's that's a really good example that had a direct result from creating experience to creating content to creating community.
And just to add to that, what basically happened was that Airbnb or the CEO decided to waive the fees, like all the transaction fees and everything that Airbnb will take from a connection of a host to a guest. And with that, they're facilitating this process of, kind of charity support that people are doing. And so, it can be used for marketing. It can be used to reaffirm their values. It is like, it has different purposes. But, stuff like that, or we talked about, I don't know if it was last episode or the 2 episodes before, we talked about different charity examples, like buy a shoe, donate a shoe for Tom's and stuff like that. With all of those, like, they are making the user feel good about that experience that they're doing, whether it's a purchase at the moment, whether it's like just a good feeling about the brand. So what Airbnb is doing is establishing that good feeling in the minds of their customers and audience. So after empathy, we're going to get to defining. So now that we understood what our audience is feeling, what our customers are feeling, what challenges they have, what pain points they have, what needs they have, then we need to define, okay, what is that we are trying to solve? And so kind of like having an objective. For example, it could be, that our brand awareness is low among our demographic. And so, the concept of OKRs that has been used a lot in business. Yeah, you will define an objective or goal, and then you define key results to measure and validate whether you accomplish that goal or not. And the key results, similar to SMART goals, they need to be specific, measurable, achievable, and all of those features. So with the key results, you can actually go through the next phase of like really looking for solutions and ideating on ideas to solve the problem. But the key results need to solve like be directly related to the problem statement or the objective that you came up with from observation and talking to customers. So, there are different ways to now get to the phase of ideation, and Noreen is going to tell us more about what are the ways to ideate on the solution.
So, the idea of ideation is to generate a bunch of creative, innovative solutions and sort of pick which one or try which ones. And so there's all kinds of activities like brainstorming, mind mapping, and other kinds of exercises to get different ideas. And the outcome is hopefully a solution or concept, and ideas that we can learn how to implement. Many times in companies, and Nico laugh, we laugh about this, like I'm anti-brainstorming, and there's a reason for that. Usually when people brainstorm, they get to the most cooperative decision, right? Because everybody's putting ideas, and then like, oh, I agree with Frank, and Frank agrees with this, and then we get this one decision, but it might not be the best idea. It is the most cooperative decision, or the most things that everybody's putting in. And a lot of times that's not necessarily the best idea or where the product should go. It's just, it's kind of what we've done before. And so if you want new ideas, there are other ways. And one of the things that I champion is different ways to access creativity. And one really cool technique is called Scamper. And so it's an acronym. It means substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to other uses, eliminate, and reverse. So you don't do all of them at once, but you use elements of existing solutions. One really good example of this is in cooking, right? Nico is vegan. So if there's a dish that normally has meat in it, you would substitute tofu or substitute cauliflower for crusts or in bread or whatever. So these are elements. So by switching something out, you can come up with a new idea. Combine, the second, the C in Scamper, means bringing two things together that you wouldn't normally do. Let me see if I can think of like combining. I know, here's a terrible fashion one. Somebody did this at Balenciaga, combine boots or shoes with pants. Have you seen those? I don't know, but so you just...
Well, everything nowadays can be fashionable.
Right. So but you know what I mean? Like, so the idea of one, we don't have an idea for a pant. We don't have an idea for a shoe. We'll just put the shoe and the pant together, or adapt it in a different way, modify or put to other uses. Like, what can you use this for that you wouldn't normally use it for? So,
and these are all creative ideas that we're not used to, but you never know when you combine or substitute or adapt or do all of those things. You never know the outcomes because you're not used to it.
Right, because you're not used to it. Or what if you take something away? Like, what if you took like that AI pin? Like, what if you took the phone away from being able to access the internet part, or
Yeah, I mean
reverse.
that AI pin is a good example of removing an option, eliminate the
Right,
idea of
right. And
eliminating the screen was the
eliminate the
idea.
screen, like what happens then, or reverse it, like do it backwards, so scamper is you know usually when I do a scamper exercise, I put the scam and we write out like substitute, combine, make columns and kind of say what could we substitute this for this, or and like
Mhm.
start to have ideas that way by changing it. And that can often flip the switch. And it's really funny because, again, people do this with products more than with content or experiences.
Mhm.
But you can do it that way. So, um,
Yeah, and we will get to more specific examples in a bit. But yeah,
yeah.
this was
So
a great.
that's just it's a technique that I like, and I have a bunch of techniques we can talk about. And if people are interested in the techniques, we could certainly do some sort of interactive content. Or but another fun one is the worst possible idea. So challenging the assumptions by intentionally saying bad or outrageous ideas, and exaggerate current solutions. And then through seeing bad ideas, you might come up with a good idea or a fun idea, or it allows you to see more, by approaching it that way.
And it's funny because what we call bad is just what's not norm, and what's not norm is not necessarily always wrong.
Right.
You just need to be creative again and think outside the box and all that. So these are all just ways to activate your brain to want to look at different perspectives, and often that's where you find the solutions.
Right. So again, same thing, random stimulus, like put in different words or phrases or images, or try to make different connections that are unexpected. So, and those lead to new ideas. So, um, and then crowdsourcing is another one, by going and asking that, like we just did all the empathy stuff, go and ask suggestions from employees or your community or your audience, your customer, so, going for there's a difference between perception and perspective. My perception is how I see the world, and perspective is being able to see from many different angles. And so, crowdsourcing is a great way to get more perspective. Then
And I just want to add a comment to that. So again, in this interview with Jeff Bezos, he mentioned this idea, like you mentioned in the beginning of this phase, how a lot of times brainstorming causes like the compromise of ideas. And
correct.
so he said, especially like when you have a group of leaders, executives in a room, the least like the most junior person often is fearful of saying anything even if they have an idea. And so what he has come up with, which is around along the lines of the crowdsourcing, is that the most junior person speaks first, and it goes up in the hierarchy after, and he speaks last, because he knows when he speaks in the beginning, then no one wants to oppose that decision, because they immediately believe that he knows the answer. But he says that in a lot of cases, a lot of ideas come from those even less experienced people in the team. So for crowdsourcing, we also need to be mindful of not impacting each other's opinion. Like, for example, when talking to customers for customer discovery, we don't want to ask them like, hey, do you like my product? That's very biased question. You want to ask them about their problems, their pain points, about other products that they're using to solve their problems, not specifically about what you are offering, because that will bias their answer.
Yeah. And so it's really good to sort of change up dynamic, whether it's an interpersonal dynamic, or the next one that I wanted to mention is the excursion method, which means changing your environment um, to expose yourself to different spaces or gain perspective. It used to be more popular, like you go on a company retreat. I think
Yep.
budgets have and I'm wondering if, like, working from home, people get different perspectives. So really, changing or going into the store, or like you said at the beginning, the designer that went actually into the gym and watched people with in the observation of how people approach the equipment, but just changing up where you are, because we kind of get ingrained ourselves. And so
Having a meeting in a spa.
yeah,
Where people are relaxed, they
yeah,
can come up with, more free ideas. But yeah, I mean, just the different ways to activate creativity. These are all different ways to activate creativity. And a lot of times we are more creative when we are more relaxed and we're in that flow state. So these are all important. And even if you are closer, and it's even better if you're closer to the environments that your end users are. So like,
right.
yeah, going to gym and stuff like that is important, because if you're building something for those users, you want to be around them.
Right. And then, kind of like what we talked about before, having the what Jeff Bezos was saying about having the least um, experienced team members speak first. There's also a concept called role storming, where people assume different roles, either fictional roles or other people's roles, and you sort of, you change it up. So the accounting person might say, well, if I was the marketing manager, I would do this or whatever, and so
Yeah, maybe it's like it took them so long to think about this. Like Gary Tan, the CEO of Y Combinator, he used to have a startup, and he said what they used to do is to basically one day a week, I think one day a month, basically, one person kind of randomly selected will get to tell everybody what to work on. And so, like, maybe for so long, somebody was, kind of holding an idea of like, hey, if I could tell the CMO to do this, it would be much more successful. So that's where you can actually come up with a lot of exciting, crazy ideas by just giving people the space.
yeah. And I think to create that in a team environment, and it's not as easy as it sounds, to go say, okay, now we're going to do this, and yeah, and
It
but
requires a flexibility in mind and, yeah, management style.
and so then there's an even more crazy one, which is, they call it body storming, but it's like, and I have one where it's drawing, where you doodle the problem, doodling your block, or so. But body storming is when you act out the ideas through physical movements and improv. So you're kind of playing charades or whatever. You're because a lot of times it's so funny, because a lot of people say that they're visual thinkers, but they're actually not.
Mhm.
And then there are people who are physical thinkers, and then there are people who are visual thinkers, and then they're constantly translating their ideas into words, and it's not coming off as well. So trying different ways, whether it's acting out the idea, or drawing the idea, or you know kind of walking through a physical space, um, can change your perspective as well.
Noreen, is it based on your experience? Just came up with this idea. Like, is the learning format for, or learning the style, the same as communication style? Like, if I'm better at listening, or learning through listening, does that necessarily mean I'm a better communicator through listening or speaking, or does that
Yes.
vary?
Yes, the communication style. So your learning style affects your communication style. There are cases where they're different, where your inputs are different than your outputs,
Mhm.
which are more rare. Usually,
It's the
if
same.
you're a visual thinker, then you draw because you're thinking
Mhm.
that way, right? So, so
Interesting.
yes, you have your how you can receive information, and is your input, and how you put out information is your output. There are people who are more neurodiverse that have way different inputs than outputs. Some, they have, like people who are nonverbal but can play, and they play out their feelings on the piano or something like that.
Those
So
are special
yeah,
talents.
they're special, but most of the time they are similar or related, and you usually have a primary,
Mhm.
um, and in communication it can be a little different. So, like, yes, some people, they're they get information, through listening or watching videos or something, and some people
Yeah,
read
I'm
more.
like that. As you know, I'm all about like watching videos and listening and seeing it quickly, a bit too extra speed.
Yeah,
Um,
yes, you do that. But yeah, so how you're absorb. But I think that people, it's good to kind of explore that, like, okay,
it's important for even a company or team to discover that, we talk like there are different things that we need to know about people around us. What is their learning style? What is their communication style? What is their love language or emotional style? Like all of these are like basic things that will really facilitate the whole dynamic in the team and, results in a lot good outcomes.
right, because like some people, they want praise, like, just, it's, you can adapt love languages for business, except for the touching part. Some people want money, some people want a raise, or some people want power, they want you know a title that's really
Yeah,
important to them.
yeah.
So there's these different, I don't know if anybody has done the business version of that, but identifying, yes, this is how I receive information, this is how I hand out information, this is what motivates me moving forward, and this is how I collaborate. There's also
And it's
collaboration.
also, yeah, it's not black and white like you said. Everybody has the primary and the secondary and so on. So like it's a spectrum. Everything is a spectrum, and like somebody might appreciate having the title, but also they want some level of money. So like everything is a spectrum.
Oh yeah. But it just
Priorities are different.
it's very interesting to um understand those different things for team dynamics, which is kind of a different topic. But if we can relate it back to the topic of the customer,
Yeah.
the customer also has all those emotional things, and you're making stuff for them, and you want them to have that, and so yeah, so what is
That's where the personalization comes in, when you exactly know that user and understand that they like the gifting element. That's how, their love languages, or they engage with you. And so then that's where a lot of brands offer gifts, small little things here and there for the birthday or whatever. And these are all those emotional touch points, those memorable experiences. And then we have brand activations that we're talking about. That's for people that are more kinesthetic, and they like to like do a physical activity. So all of those elements, or like the other sensory experiences that we will talk about. But yes, so it applies to all sorts of aspects of life.
right? So, and then it's just, there's a couple more things to touch on, as far as like these creativity and ideation. There's something called aligned innovation, which is where you're seeing where the gaps are, and where in the market's fails to fully meet the customer needs and frustrations, and then ideate solutions. So that's very much like what you were talking about at the beginning, those paper cut method. Get all the list of all the things that are really going on, and uh,
and try to come up with solutions for them,
yeah,
even if they are not the deal breakers. They're still small little things that will
yes, that keeps being aligned and keeps being aligned. So, and then finally, there's which we really can't get into fully, which is the TRIZ, the TRIZ framework, which is what's called, it's a contradiction matrix, which means the opposites. And so it came through patent analysis, and so it's a systematic way through these 40 questions. It's very binary. It's contradiction. Is it this or that? Is it this or that? Is it this or that? And so it's almost like the opposite of body storming and acting it out. It's a very the TRIZ method is a very binary framework where there's contradictions, and then when you can't answer the contradiction, you have to make a decision and move on. You kind of go put the idea through that. So
let's try that. I haven't tried this TRIZ.
You haven't tried TRIZ, and you haven't tried Scamper either. So
well, I think the Scamper is more kind of, we have used it in different ways, but yeah, I'm excited to try TRIZ.
So there's all these different ways of being, and that's just 9 that I put together, for the purpose of the podcast to explain ideation and go into it a little bit. But if we go back over it, so first we're going to empathize, then we're going to define, then we're going to pick one of these ways or a few of them and to ideate. And then you actually make whatever it is you're making, whether it's content or a product, and this, and then you test them and get feedback. So that is the whole
process of design thinking. Yeah,
process of design thinking with an insert of other ways to ideate that are other than mind mapping and brainstorming. So you can make your own methodology or try different methodologies to come up with what you want to make for your content and what you want to make for experiences. Right. So do you want to talk about the prototyping or creation?
Yeah, I mean, if we discovered some problems and then we came up with ideas or defined the idea and then came up with ideas to solutions, we're not going to know if this is going to be impactful if we don't create it. So, but obviously we don't want to go build a full-blown product before we test, make sure that this is what the customer really wanted. And so that's where the idea of prototyping comes in, which I'm sure most of our audience is familiar. Have a minimum viable product or something that can kind of accomplish that objective that we defined and can answer those key results that we defined. And so as long as we can accomplish that with that MVP, then we would be good to move forward with that. So you don't want to, like, for example, that engineer who was ideating on improving the treadmills in the gym, he just went and quickly built a prototype in a matter of a few weeks and brought it back to the gym and put it next to the existing treadmills, and then he started measuring that what percentage of people are going with this treadmill versus that treadmill. And then he realized that this sense of safety that this new prototype is adding to this treadmill is, significantly improving the experience. And so, with that, you confirm that, yes, the problem is confirmed, is validated, the the solution is validated, and these are the ways that we can measure the outcome of this solution. And so then you can have, enough data and information to now move on to actual product creation, and kind of go back to this process over and over again. Because even when you do create a product, you're still gonna have certain things that users have friction with, and you have to constantly go back through this loop. So this design thinking is never gonna stop. Customer discovery, talking to customers, improving, iterating, this all never gonna stop. It's continuous improvement is part of the game, and we have to keep doing it.
And again, also for immersive experiences and content and everything, not just products. Like if you're making environments for your customers to come interact, whether they're metaverse environments or real world experiential things, or doing in social media content, so when you're creating as a brand, you want to think about these
constantly getting feedback, constantly hearing them out, and not just building in a bubble, because that's what we see a lot of these other platforms are doing, and that doesn't result in good. Or the other problem is like they're just like looking at one type of audience, like not the, a broad response, and all that information not coming from everywhere. So it's very important to be open-minded on all of those areas. But now let's talk about emotions. We were talking about how it's so important to focus on this emotional connection and make a memorable experience. So what are those elements that brands can think about when they are creating a memorable product or experience?
So, the name of the podcast today, the title of the show is, delightful design. And what I mean, I want to talk about, what I mean by delightful, and, you just want to uplift a little bit. So you're thinking about the experiential purpose. And then you're thinking, and we've done that empathy step and we've ideated. So the next part is to create the emotional touch points throughout the customer journey. And we talked about the customer journey and the storytelling in the 2 previous episodes. So it's not just the final experience, it's these moments of delight in unexpected place. And so delight is a term that is kind of trending right now, and in its role in storytelling is connecting with audience on this emotional level and creating enjoyable, engaging customer experiences. So one of these, they don't have to contain every element, again, just like with the ways to ideate. You don't want to be like doing 9,000 things. That's too much. But surprise is a fun thing. So unexpected plot twist or humor or revelations can delight audience by surprising them, and it triggers it catches the viewer off guard in an enjoyable way, like to something that's surprising. Have you recently been surprised by any content or experience, Nico?
Yeah, I mean, there are different examples that I want to go through, but yeah, surprise, for example, a lot of NFT projects, they want or brands, they have like these surprise airdrops. Basically, I think I was just watching one of our amazing friends, Sophie Max. She has a great Instagram page and LinkedIn page. And so she talks about how different activations are in Web3. And today she posted how everyone who has a Solana phone, apparently they just received a certain token, like millions of that is worth like $600 something. So she was showing how she never really used the phone.
Right.
Because a lot of companies came up with having their own phone, obviously, and it didn't
Right.
go anywhere. But they came up with this idea of activating through, giving a gift of surprise. And, it happened also with OpenSea, and other platforms, they just wanted to kind of strengthen this relationship with their audience through giving them this unexpected gift.
Yeah, and Prada does that with their collection. If you have the NFT, it's their dead stock, and they make something, either a purse or some accessory out of dead stock. So it's like the patterns, and then they started to gift when you buy the NFT. Then they've been gifting out the actual physical thing. So there's lots of ways. Or even when you're minting on, in Web3, you don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes if it's
Good
minted on.
surprise or a bad surprise.
Yeah. So that could be fun. And then in other things, it's just like also like in sometimes when you get like a purchase, there'll be a little gift purchase, little thing, like especially like when you buy from Etsy, or somebody will put a card in. So, or even in an an advertisement, something happens that you didn't expect and it's funny. So surprise is very much an element of this kind of delightful thinking, allowing sensory imagination and details to transport your audience in imaginative stories that they can get lost in a narrative. So there's lots of different kinds of imagination elements that can be used. Also, the idea of whimsy and playfulness, or quirkiness, or childlike delight. So something silly or fanciful, as long as it's in line with your brand, or being clever, witty or intelligent, can also, or inside jokes or Easter eggs. So, smart stories that engage the mind as well as the heart can be very interesting. And then, wish fulfillment of the uplifting themes of good triumphing over evil, or attaining great heights, or the hero stories, or hopeful or fulfilling messages, or happy endings that satisfy our human need for good outcomes. So
maybe I would jump in and share some examples as we're talking about them. So
okay.
like the wish fulfillment example that comes to mind, most of our audience probably knows Mr. Beast. And he is, very active in this side of like charity giving, with, like satisfying wishes of people. He just had a campaign. I think I sent it to you, Noreen, that like if you go to his Shopify store on the Shop app, you can request a gift from him. And so some people are going as crazy as like asking for a Tesla. God knows if he's really gonna do it. But the idea of like, just the feeling of, oh, someone is caring about me, or someone cares about my wishes and stuff like that. And a lot of his videos are about, going to Africa and, building bridges, giving, drinking water to people. And he's obviously making a lot of money on his non-charitable page, because his page that does mostly charity, he doesn't make money off of. But this overall kind of idea of how he is so connected to the end users and the customers, the audience, and they are feeling good about what he does, it is going to impact what he's doing on the business side and other aspects. The other example to the whimsy and playfulness that I wanted to share is that there is an activation in the UK, actually in London, I believe, called Phantom Peak. And I'm going to share my screen to show that to our audience. But basically, it's a very interesting experience where you can go spend like up to 5 hours of just being in that space with friends or family. And so, this is, it's not too expensive, up to 4.5 hours you can spend. And they have all sorts of like interactive, fun experiences that you can have. This is a little video about, from Neil Patrick Harris talking.
Amazing. I have never experienced something where there was so many options of fun, puzzly adventures to experience, trails to unravel, people to talk to. Everyone was on their own singular adventure, and yet was this community that gathered together to sort of learn about this world with lakes and like a bear. This place is crazy. I can't wait to come back 5 more times.
But yeah, so a simple, environment like that can bring in a lot of tourists and people, even locals, that just want to have a fun holiday activity together. And then another example for the imagination parts that I want to share is, we read a lot of books, we watch movies, and these all are great to activate our imagination and leave us wanting more and introducing us to like these new ideas, new realms. And so Stranger Things was a great TV, like Netflix show that, really brought people a lot of joy and different perspectives and ideas. And so they created these activations. Apparently, it was originally in New York, and then now they expanded it in different locations, different parts of the world. And so, yeah, you can go in and, have fun, and kind of everything you watched before, now you can actually maybe touch and feel and, eat, have fun, go on a date, or, gather with your friends and just continue this story in your mind. And, from the brand perspective, they are strengthening again their bond with the audience. And this IP is, I think Friends did something like that. There's another one in New York I saw. So a lot of these shows and kind of ideas or IPs are doing something like that to strengthen a relationship with their audience. Is there any example you want to share, Noreen? Is there anything coming to your mind in terms of maybe cleverness?
Well,
that's comedy, right? Basically.
Yeah, or cleverness is also like being smart or like making a twist. I don't,
maybe that example with the Snoop Dogg that he, like we talked about it last week, how he was saying I quit smoking, but he wasn't. So like, and then it was an advertisement for, a fireplace type of thing. And so you could be something that is intelligent and humorous.
Right. That was clever and surprise, right? Like, I quit smoke, and then everybody's talking, what? Snoop Dogg, and then like the smoky fire. Yes. So setting up a story and then doing the twist, because some people say that storytelling is about conflict, but really it's more about changing the perspective or revealing something. So yeah, that's a great example of those kinds of experiences. And then every brand can do that and bring in different types of emotions as fit with their brand tone and voice. So, this show really is about surprising and delighting and design elements that create an impact for the user and has positive perspective. But, maybe you want to amuse your customer like that, and your purpose is to entertain, and then the design elements would be more playful and humorous or interactive, like, with something fun. So you're creating a memorable experience.
And a good example of amuse is what Disney is doing, right?
Right, right. Well, amusement parks, they call them that. Disney's theme parks are you're trying to get that sense of lightheartedness and joy. They say that in bringing so theme parks were kind of the first immersive experiences, right? Because like,
Mhm.
how would you take the animated movie and make it to something that someone can walk into? And they thought Walt Disney was crazy because he built all these trains in his house and tracks, to all around the house for years before he even opened the theme park. But what he was trying to do was experience in the real world that interactive idea of what the movie is or telling the story in that way. And those train tracks and things became, the Matterhorn and all the rides and stuff like that. So that the way that he did it was to create rides, and then or even the slow rides like the Pirates of the Caribbean, where you're passing stuff, and and then the animatronics come out, and then there's something around the corner. So that's a great example of um, amusement. Again, and sometimes it's fun when brands who, like this fireplace brand with Snoop Dogg, you're not expecting it, right? So sometimes your brand tone of voice may have been one thing up till now, and then you kind of want to throw a wrench in the works and get that in something
Virality, the goal
by.
may be virality. So whatever the campaign is supposed to do, depending on that, you can define what the emotions you want to trigger. And quick examples on this idea of amusement and playfulness. And more modern versions of this are Camp is another store that is kind of selling toys and this type of things, but also they bring experiences to people. So families can spend hours hanging out in these camp stores and leave the store with buying stuff. So it's kind of does a modern version of that. The other example is the Museum of Ice Cream. You go to hang out, spend time, and take a lot of pictures, and then it does the promotion for you. Another activation that I can think of, which is about a different feeling and emotion, and that's trust and comfort. With sometimes you want people just like feel peace and comfort. So what Coca-Cola did is that they partnered with United Airlines at Chicago International Airport, and they created this 3D, which I can share my screen and show you guys. But basically, they created this 3D environment, 3D printed space that is feeling the cozy, like giving the feeling of the coziness of a home to the audience. And this in the middle of holiday traveling, airport craziness, and having this in the lounge of United Airlines, it has been really helpful because people are just coming here, taking pictures. They created a lot of content for the brand, for both brands. And then, this was like the concept, and they basically 3D printed everything pretty quickly and created this. But they basically use this to introduce a new taste of their drinks, and create a lot of engagement with the brand. So it could be as simple as this. It doesn't have to be like a huge activation. It could be a simple partnership with a clever idea, and just bringing that feeling that you want to evoke into the audience.
Yeah, and whatever that feeling is, whether it's joy or inspiration or wonder or empathy or even calmness, like to just give somebody a stress-free experience, and there's different design elements that go with each one. Like, if you're being calm, you want it to be more soft and minimalistic and be intuitive. Whereas if you want
Like the wonder, you want to go kind of crazy, complex.
Right, crazy, complex. So going through all of this process and then just kind of saying, okay, this is my customer, this is the story that I'm telling, this is the experience or the content that I want to create, and these are the emotions that I want to invoke, and then put that together into an experience, a campaign,
and then test it, validate whether that emotion is really evoked into the audience, and if not, what can we change and iterate through. So all the steps we talked about for design thinking is combined with this type of techniques and emotional activations, will give us the outcome that we're looking for.
Correct, right. So taking, I think that as we've been going through these things, understanding the customer, understanding the touch points, understanding storytelling, understanding design thinking, understanding emotion brings you closer to getting the outcome that you want. And I know that it sounds like a lot of stuff, and and I will be doing some more blogs for our website that kind of follows how to do this, and or if you have questions or want to talk to us about it, this is kind of where we live as far as creating the product that we're creating, and then as far as consulting and helping other people with their brands, and so
and yeah, we will continue educating and informing our audience. Next week, we're going to go deeper into the technology side of it. Now we talked about how we're engaging emotion, how we're telling the story, and how we're going to really use the technology. So that's the next step that we're going to talk about. Cool. Thank you so much, Noreen, for your contribution, and thank you for our amazing audience. Again, as Noreen said, feel free to comment, DM us. And we would love to also have some of you come on the show. We started broadcasting on different platforms, but we're still excited and open to bring amazing guest speakers. So if you have ideas on how to contribute, definitely let us know. And we'll be back next week, again, 2 p.m. EST on Tuesday. And I wish everyone a beautiful holiday if you're celebrating. And we'll be back next week.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Nico.
Thank you. Bye.